All those that can, please stand. Please welcome the Mayor of the City of Colchester, Councillor Tim Young.
Evening everyone, welcome to this meeting of the full council. I'm Councillor Tim Young, Mayor of the City of Colchester, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. The meeting is being audio broadcast live over the internet and will also be available to watch afterwards. To begin, there are a few housekeeping matters as always. Should the alarm sound, please evacuate using the nearest emergency exit and assemble at the car park at the rear of the town hall. If necessary, we'll look to have breaks at approximately 90-minute intervals. Please stay standing. At the last meeting in the old library, a few councillors didn't show respect for the prayers, so I'm going to ask you to stay standing for them, and if you want to leave for the meeting for the prayers, then now is your opportunity. Yes, Councillor Nissen. You may sit down. Those who are able to do, please stay standing. Reverend Howlett, if you could please give us the prayers.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. Dear God, we thank you for your love and care, and we pray for this meeting and the agenda items under deliberation this evening. As we think back to all the pioneers and great minds who have made this city what it is today, help us to continue in that spirit of risk-taking, wisdom and truth. Dear God, your Son said that the harvest is plentiful, but the labourers are few. Stir up your people so that they are keen to serve you in the public worlds of business, politics, education, law and industry. And whenever the welfare of humanity may be improved or threatened, may compassion and justice inform our local, national, global life and institutions, just as much as they address our consciences. So this evening, dear Lord, enliven our minds, inspire our conversations, inform our decisions, increase our faith and decrease our pride, until we know that when we face the unexpected, we do not stand alone. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Sue. Reverend Sue is having to leave us. She's got other commitments, being quite near the time of year when it gets very busy for the clergy. So thank you, Reverend Sue. Please be seated. Right, we have apologies from Councillors Buston, Coleman, Gocher, Hagan, Luxford-Vaughan, Naylor, Willits and Julie Young. Move on to item 2. By the way, I think we'll all notice the new Colchester City Council signs we've got in front of us, although some of them need redoing. I understand some of the political parties we've got wrong. So some of them are going to have to be remade unless there have been defections that nobody has told anybody about. But there you go. I think they look great. Well done, everyone. We have first have your say speaker is Steve Kelly. If you come forward, Mr. Kelly. Yeah, a table and microphone is over there. It's already on. You have 3 minutes. You'll get a bell after 2 to tell you have a minute left, and then a bell again at the end of your 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Your time will start when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors, officers. Today is International or World AIDS Day, December the 1st. Millions have died. Equally, the other immune deficiency disease is cancer. Back in 1900, 1 in 200 people had the incidence of cancer. Now we've gone through 1 in 3, it's approaching 1 in 2. And that is due to so many different factors but obviously industrialisation, dare I say capitalism, and poor nutrition in the face of increasing pollution from not only particulate pollution, but the, excuse me, from the poor use of resources and the genetic modification, etc. Now, I won't apologise again for bringing up vitamin D, because studies have shown that we can reduce certain cancers by half. Now, I was informed by a councillor here that we didn't have the money, but that's, to me, that's like saying we don't have the money for clean water. It's as essential because it comes from the sunlight interacting with the skin. Now, please, we're facing the biggest health threat we've ever faced. That we've lost 5 million people through this pandemic and growing. And I would just ask councillors, please research with an open mind, and please get back to me. I've spoken to several councillors here. They've promised to get back to me, and sadly they haven't. Obviously, they know who they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Councillor Julie Young would normally answer on health issues, but in her absence, I'm going to ask Councillor King, the leader of the council, if he would like to respond.
Thank you much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We spoke at some length, both at a previous full council and most recently at Cabinet, about your interest in a number of health issues. And in many respects, the pandemic and vaccinations to one side, much of what you said rang soundly to me when we spoke at it at Cabinet. There is no question that vitamin D is a very cheap and very effective way of countering the effects of the loss of light. And it is for the professionals to push that, and in my experience, they do. As a local authority, we are well connected, and I'm sure that's something that we can certainly add our voice to. But as I say, the prime responsibility beyond that every citizen has, because vitamin D is cheap and easily accessible. Beyond that, of course, we'll add our voice to yours. So I thank you for raising the latter issue. We have not turned away requests to fund. As I say, it's an issue of responsibility and where it should lie. And we have real sympathy with anybody who's having a tough time, and many are, the effects upon their health. And I'm sure you're right in the essence that the industrialization of food and life has its impacts, and pollution included. So thank you for your remarks. Once again, noted, and I'm sure it will interest some other members as well as myself. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, you have another minute if you wish to use it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor King. I appreciate that response. Yes, it is a matter of individual choice, but a choice is only ever a choice when it's informed. And sadly, the powers that be are doing all they can not to make a lot of this sort of information public. A classic, going off piste a little bit, a classic one is vitamin B17. Now, I'm hazarding a guess most people haven't heard of that. That's because the cancer industry, a $7 trillion industry, is blocking the information from coming out. But if you study the group of people in the northwest of India, the Hunza, their rates of cancer are 1,000 times less than us. Surely we need to find out why and then publicise those answers, rather than giving the opportunities of big pharmaceutical industries to make even more profits at our life's expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Thanks very much. Thank you. Our second Have Your Say speaker is David Linghorn-Baker. If you come forward, please. Mr. Linghorn-Baker, you have 3 minutes, and as with Mr. Kelly, a bell will sound after 2 to let you know you've got a minute left, and then again at the end of 3 minutes. The timing will start when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair, councillors and officers. As you imagine, the residents of Highwoods were very happy to hear there was going to be a new community centre on the former rugby club in Mill Road. And following the securing of £1.8 million in funding by the Highwoods Independents and also the previous administration, the reality of this appearing is very, very important for our residents. However, nothing appears to have moved forward, and residents are understandably concerned, particularly when there is talk of capital programmes across the borough under threat. Will the portfolio holder commit to ensuring St Mark's Community Centre is built? And could they also confirm what the future of other community centres, particularly those in the neighbouring ward of Mile End, namely Kingsland Heath and Chesterwell, are they also under threat from the capital programme?
Thank you very much, Mr. Linghorn-Baker. Councillor Corey, I understand you're responding on this.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the questions there. The capital programme is a serious amount of money and is a focus for this council, and it's a renewed focus at the moment. We have had many good discussions in this chamber and at the Governance and Audit Committee on the capital programme. We also had the Local Government Association peer review look into the council and look at the capital programme, and their advice was to take a review of it. It's something that I think the last administration and this administration coming in were both keen to do. So that is happening. So through the Governance and Audit Committee, along with us as Cabinet, we are taking that review and halting halting the programme to take a full review. We have agreed that cross-party. We think that's the right thing to do. It's something that Councillor King, as leader in his previous role, felt needed to be done. It's perhaps gone on further than we would have wanted in terms of coming in now and having a look at the programme again, but that's been made worse by impacts of inflation and resources, and I'll come back to that at the end. So we are agreeing across the council that we need to review the programme, and that's what we're doing. So that review is now underway, so therefore everything is being looked at. That includes all projects that are of a certain value. The Highwoods Community Centre project stands at £1.8 million at the moment. So that is under review like everything else, but that is because we are doing that, and that's the prudent thing to do. I've spoken to a lot of Highwoods residents recently as well. Alison Jay, a resident I know well, who is chair of the Myland Council and lives in the ward, she has been talking with David King and I as leader about this as well. So I'm sure you'll be happy to know that we're in touch with those on the ground in the ward. And lastly, it has been made worse, sadly, by the government's mini budget, which has caused further pressures on inflation and on our borrowing. So we have to be very careful going forward because of that political mess, sadly. So our approach, and actually supported across the chamber, is to be cautious, to review, and we'll end that review next year, and then we'll have more news for all residents across this city about which spending plans we can go ahead with, which ones we can't, which ones we'll have to reduce, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corey. Mr. Linghorn-Baker, you have another minute if you wish to use it.
Thank you, Councillor Corey, for that response. I have to say my question did have two parts to it, not only about St Mark's, but more importantly about wider community assets, and especially the two that are planned for Mile End at Kingsland Heath and Chesterwell. It'd be nice to have an update if they are in the same capital programme and at the same risk as St Mark's Community Centre. But I'm happy.
Thank you very much. Do you wish to respond to that, Councillor Corey?
As I said, across the borough, we have to look at all the capital programmes. Some of the projects you have mentioned have a greater 106 contribution than the one in St Mark's, the one in Highwoods, for example. So there are less contributions on some projects, so some may move ahead if they are less reliant on Colchester City Council funding. But at this point in time, we have to review everything. but speaking to your local councillors would also help an understanding of the 106 contributions going into those projects as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Linghorn-Baker. Highwoods is getting a lot of attention tonight. There are 6 candidates standing in the by-election next week. I wonder if they'll all get named tonight. We shall see. Let's move on. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? We are operating under the new code of conduct, which most of us, if not all of us, have been trained on now. Are there any tonight? No. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the meetings held on the 19th of October 2022 and the special council meetings of the 23rd of November 2022 be confirmed as a correct record. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 5, Mayor's announcements. Can I first thank, as ever, at the December council meeting, Councillor Barton, for arranging the donations to the food bank. Thank you to all who donated, and it's been collected, and there's some more out there that needs to be taken and collected. So thank you again, Lynn, for your assistance with that. I should mention that we are, as you can obviously see, back in the old library. That's because their microphones in the council chamber are showing their age, and so it does look as though we need a complete new control board or something. So that's being looked at, and hopefully the council chamber will be back in action later this month, I'm told. As Mr. Kelly mentioned, it is World AIDS Day. Some of us are wearing the red ribbon to mark World AIDS Day. It commemorates all those who are suffering or have died of AIDS over the years, and there is a commemoration at the Mercury Theatre tonight, starting at 7, so sadly none of us can make it, on which they are commemorating World AIDS Day. If I can mention, please, a couple of my charity events. On the 13th of December, I think I emailed you all again recently, and Dr. Anthony Roberts is doing his rendition of A Christmas Carol in the Civic Suite. There are still tickets available. Please go either onto the Colchester Arts Centre website or the Mayor of Colchester website to book your tickets for that. They're only £10 and well worth it. If you've seen Ant deliver his A Christmas Carol, it is a tour de force. Also, there is our sketch show in aid of the Mayor's charity happening on the 13th and 14th of January at the Headgate Theatre. Tickets are available for that. Some classic sketches being performed by the Crunchy Frog players in aid of the Mayor's charities, and I'm sure, I know some of you already bought tickets, thank you very much, but snap them up before they all go. And also the Civic Carol service, you should have had been contacted about, and you'll be reminded about, is on the Sunday the 18th at 7 o'clock. The Reverend Howlett will be leading it at St Andrew's Church in Forest Road, Greensted, and I hope as many of you who are able to will attend that carol service as well, please. That's all my announcements. Item 6, items referred under the call-in procedure. Mr. Weavers?
There are none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item 7, recommendations of Cabinet panels and committees. First little one, Officer Pay Policy Statement 2023-24, and I'll invite Councillor Corey, the portfolio holder for resources, to move motion B, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the recommendation contained in draft minutes 706 of the Cabinet meeting of the 16th of November 2022 be approved and adopted. We did discuss this briefly at Cabinet. It is something we prepare each year, and it outlines our pay policy and structure. Apart from further updates and uplifts to the living wage that we pay, which is more generous than the real living wage, more generous than the national living wage, because it is a real living wage. And we also are referencing in the report the change to the senior management structure, which we have just approved at the same Cabinet meeting on the 16th. So that is incorporated too. Otherwise, Mayor, I will not take any further time and advise Cabinet to support, no, Cabinet supported it, advise Council to vote this through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corey. Are there any speakers on this item? No. You get a chance to sum up, Mark, but do you want to?
I'll get my words in the right order this time and just ask Council to support this policy. Thank you.
Can I see all those in favour, please show?
It's unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. And then we will move on to item little 2, nomination for Deputy Mayor 2023-24. And I will invite Councillor King, the Leader of the Council, to move motion C, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the recommendation contained in draft minutes 708 of the Cabinet meeting of the 16th of November be approved and adopted, and accordingly Councillor Scott Boutell be nominated for election as Deputy Mayor for the City of Colchester for the 23-24 municipal year. Mr. Mayor, this is one of those pleasant things for us as a chamber together. Each year we have an annual cycle with tough news in it and difficult things and papers to read, but this is about people, it's about our own, it's about the quality of them, and it's a recognition of their length of service. But I think universally it's also about a recognition in that moment of stillness about the qualities of the person, the respect we can have, code of conduct acknowledged, but more readily than that for our fellow colleagues, our fellow members. And I have that respect for Leslie Scott Boutell. She's a scrapper and a fighter and a doer, and she's done that over many years. She's chairing the policy panel now in a way which I'm pleased to see. It's encouraging a debate and a richness of conversation, and that's exactly what she wanted too. So she's a person of real quality, and she's a person of real quality who faces some profound challenges which are lost sight of because they're not talked about. We go past the difficulties of each other. We are consumed, aren't we, by our own challenges, and that's understandable. So, but Leslie, with the challenges she's had, the success she's had, the tough road in the past and perhaps in the present, this is a rich moment for her, and one that I hope the whole chamber will, and I'm sure will support. She looks after her colleagues, her party, but above all her residents, and that, after all, is why we all stood, or should be, and that's why we're all here. So she deserved the nomination. She'll make a great mayor when the time comes, and I commend the motion accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor King. Do I have any speakers on this? Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Mayor. I have the pleasure this year of being the deputy to Councillor Scott Boutell on the policy committee, and I know that she started the municipal year by saying we were going to be a proactive pair, and I think it's fair to say that we have done that. I know that Leslie has an unparalleled commitment to the residents of Stanway, and I have no doubt that she will bring that commitment to all of the residents of Colchester when she is the first citizen of the city of Colchester in a couple of years' time. So I welcome this nomination and look forward to it being supported unanimously this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Any other speakers? Then can I say, as Mayor, that I'm absolutely delighted that this nomination has come forward. Councillor Scott Boutell, I regard as a very good colleague, but also as a friend. And as a former resident of Stanway, I'm very glad that you have agreed to this nomination, and I would like to see it fully supported tonight as well. Councillor King, you have the opportunity to sum up.
And when I echo the words of colleagues, and I say let's put it to that vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I see all those in favour, please? Please show.
I think that's unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Congratulations, Councillor Scott Boutell. I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond, Leslie, please. You have as long as you
know,
like.
I can never resist the opportunity to respond, and I'm sitting here slightly pink-cheeked and that's not something you often see. But I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you for your kind words, David. Chris, we're having a ball on policy at the moment, and thank you for your help and assistance. And just thank you. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Councillor Scott-Bootel. Move on to item little 3, review of the Council's ethical governance policies. And I'll invite another of my dear friends on the Council, Councillor Paul Smith, to move motion D, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I move that the recommendation contained in draft minute 337 of the Governance and Audit Committee meeting on the 22nd of November 2022 be approved and adopted regarding the review of the Council's ethical and governance policies. This was approved unanimously by the group, and I would urge your support. If the councillors have any further questions, I'd be happy to deal with them in my summing up.
Thank you, Paul. Any speakers on this item? No? In that case, Councillor Smith, I presume you don't want to sum up? Just move to the vote?
That is quite correct.
In that case, can we move to the vote? All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
We're doing well tonight, everybody. Well done. I'm not sure it will continue all night, but there you go. Little 4, review of the local code of corporate governance, and I'll invite Councillor Smith, Chair of the Governance and Audit Committee, to move motion E, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the recommendation contained in draft minute 340 of the Governance and Audit Committee meeting of the 22nd November 2022 be approved and adopted. This too was approved unanimously, and again I will deal with any questions that councillors have in my summing up.
Thank you. Any speakers on this item? No? Then are you happy we move straight to the vote, Councillor Smith?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Can I see all those in favour, please show.
That looks unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8. Notices of motion. The first motion relates to an executive function in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 11.2. The motion would stand referred to Cabinet. However, I will now invite Councillor Jocelyn Law to move the suspension of Council Procedure Rule 11.2, which would enable Council to debate this motion. Councillor Law, please.
Thank you. I move that the Council Procedure Rule 11, Section 2 be suspended to allow the motion on waste and recycling services in Highwoods to be debated and determined at this meeting. And this relates to agenda item 8.1, waste and recycling services in Highwoods, motion F. I move that the motion on waste and recycling services in Highwoods, the details of which are on page 5 of the agenda of this meeting, be approved and adopted. And
thank you. Yes, Councillor Law?
may I say a few words in support of this, or?
Not at this point. If we agree to debate it, you can. Is that seconded? That we move? Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Okay, we will put that to the vote, that we move the suspension of Council Procedure Rule 11.2. All those in favour of moving the motion so that we can debate it this evening, please. Yes.
Mayor, could I ask for a named vote on this?
You were nearly too late, Councillor Pearson. Is that supported by a number of colleagues? How many do we need? 2. Yeah, we've got them. So we will indeed then have a named vote on this. Mr. Weavers, if you wouldn't mind taking over, please. This is to decide whether to debate this or not.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So the vote is to decide whether or not you agree to suspend Council Procedure Rule 11.2 to enable Council to debate this motion. Councillor Arnold.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Barber.
Against.
Against. Councillor Barton. For. Councillor Bentley.
Against.
Against. Councillor Bloomfield.
For.
For. Councillor Burrows.
For.
For. Councillor Chapman.
Against.
Against. Councillor Chua. Abstain. Thank you. Councillor Corey.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Cox.
For.
For. Councillor Davidson.
Against.
Against. Councillor Ellis.
Against.
Against. Councillor Fox.
For.
For. Councillor Goss.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Harris. For. Councillor Hogg.
For.
For. Councillor King.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Kirkby Taylor.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Law.
For.
For. Councillor Laws.
Against.
Against. Councillor Lilly.
For.
For. Councillor Lissimore.
Against.
Against. Councillor McLean.
Against.
Against. Councillor Mannion.
Against.
Against. Councillor McCarthy.
Against.
Against. Councillor McLean.
For.
For. Councillor Moore.
Against.
Against. Councillor Nissen.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Pearson.
For.
For. Councillor Rippingale.
For.
For. Councillor Scaldis.
For.
For. Councillor Scott Boutell.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Smith.
Abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Smithson.
Against.
Against. Councillor Spindler.
Against.
Against. Councillor Sunnox.
Against.
Against. Councillor Tate.
Against.
Against. Councillor Warnes.
For.
For. Councillor Wood.
Against.
Against. The Deputy Mayor.
Abstain, not voting.
Abstain. And the Mayor.
Not voting.
Not voting. Thank you. Okay, thank you. The result of that vote is that the numbers voting for is... Sorry, just bear with me a minute. 14. Sorry, the numbers are, the total voting for is 14, the total against is 16, the total abstentions is 11. So the motion is not carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Weavers. In that case, the motion will stand referred to Cabinet and not be debated as the motion refers to an executive function. Okay, we will move on to motion. Let me find it. Motion G. On the electoral system, Councillor King, you are moving this. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the motion on the electoral system, the details of which are at pages 5 to 6 of the agenda for this meeting, be approved and adopted. Mr. Mayor, this is a motion of substance. It says what it needs to say. The essence of it, I'll just touch on briefly. My thanks to colleagues who've ensured that this is placed before us tonight. I'm sure it's going to engender a good quality conversation, and my hopes are in the right spirit as the first step of an exploration recommended to us by the Local Government Association and in my view, due. It covers a number of points, and there's one extra to add, which I'll get to. It covers the reality that we have a system here which is not like others. It does not make it wrong, but it does not make it right. It has to fit with our local sense of what our residents want. What we think between us is the most appropriate model for the exercise of democracy in the city of Colchester. But it also has to fit the business of this council. Now, I'm going to stand in the middle of those arguments. I understand them well. I want to hear tonight what others think, but I stand with this motion because I recommend the need for that conversation as recommended to us. It's timely, in short, and not just because the LGA have raised it. The point of clarification that members will have noticed would have been the insertion from the original motion as put forward to the one we have now of the word aim. That's in terms of the timetable. And this is the point I'd like to add in addition to what can be read by any about why we're having this conversation, why we're proposing that we should form a working group, and why we should do so at a reasonable pace. The extra fact for us to bear in mind, and my colleagues and I have discussed this, is that the Boundary Commission will be looking at us in the new year. Now, I'm awaiting the advice from the Chief Executive and the Monitoring Officer, and of course that will be shared in the usual manner. But it's plain that our growth of the past and our growth of the future warrants this review. It's happening elsewhere, but we meet the criteria. And that review can have a number of implications. You don't need to go into them now, but we need to acknowledge that the timetable of debate, discussion and consultation could run across the reality of our own consultation that would follow the steps that we're starting today. But I still believe it's right to have the conversation. We made the promise to the LGA, we made that promise across the chamber, and our residents and those who made a point to the LGA when they were visiting need to hear that we take seriously the concerns they have. My final point is this: the most important thing, if we are, what the LGA said they saw, mature in our local politics, is that with any electoral system you can find your way around the disturbance it brings, but we absolutely have to make sure that together across the chamber and beyond we are looking at the best interests of our residents, that we do what's said on the tin here. We make sure we give assurance to residents, officers and our partners about our budget, about our strategic plans, that they are robust, sustainable and supported widely. That's the spirit in which conversations are being held. That, to be frank, dwarfs a necessary conversation around the electoral choices we're making, but both conversations need to be had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. This is jointly moved by you and Councillor Fox and Councillor Laws. Councillor Fox, you're next. You have up to 3 minutes. I was told it was the other way around. You've switched them, have you?
We've done switcheroo.
Switcheroo, apparently. Councillor Laws, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor King, for moving this, and thank you for the political maturity that Councillor Fox and King have demonstrated towards me, because initially, and it's no secret, it is on the record, I came at this with quite a binary place. I think I already have made up my mind. I've been on record many times before talking about how all-out elections would save Colchester Council taxpayers lots of money, hundreds of thousands of pounds potentially. It would lead to braver and bolder decisions, and there would be less adversarial Punch and Judy style politics. And that's all on the record, so I'm not saying anything new there, and it's right that I state or restate what I've said before. But I do recognise that there are some people in this room who hold a sincere and genuine view that moving away from the current system would be in some ways an erosion of democracy. I politely disagree, but I recognise that that's a valid argument. I also recognise there are a number of relatively new councillors in the room. And so it is really important that everyone has a chance to be part of this conversation. And we are mandated, aren't we, by being told that they strongly recommend we should look at this. The LGA peer review have said we should do this. And then finally, for anyone that thinks that this is some kind of ghastly plan and I'm in some way seeking electoral capital out of this, I mean, have you looked at the polls lately? I genuinely am not doing this. My motivation is always Colchester first, what's right for the greater good. But I will keep an open mind, and I welcome the continued conversations, and let us have a proper discussion about what it could mean for us all to make Colchester the very best place that it can be. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Councillor Adam Fox, it is your turn now.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We only exist in this room tonight because the people of Colchester vote for us. And it's only right that following the Local Government Association peer review that we put together a group of councillors to look at the issues and report back to us as a whole. As has been said already tonight, I know there are a variety of views across the chamber. And it's important that the group that looks at this, I believe, is drawn from across the chamber with that variety of views within it, so that we can feel that it has been looked at objectively, and that the discussion around savings, the discussion around the strategic direction that a change of electoral system might offer would be the right one for us. We clearly have financial challenges ahead of us, and so I think it's important for that group to be clear about any potential savings that would be offered from changing the electoral system. There are some that have suggested that we can find a system that removes local elections from national elections, but I fear that in any one year we may well end up with a general election in the same year as local elections. So it's not possible to do that necessarily. But I do believe that as a new city council, it's the right time to look at this approach. No one party has been in control of this council for, I believe, a very considerable amount of time now, and I would put on record that I think all-out elections might not necessarily change that either. And so it is incumbent upon all of us to look at the ways in which we can work together and where we can find consensus across this council to deliver both financial challenges ahead of us, but also to find the topics, the projects and the direction that we can all agree on for the betterment of Colchester and its residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Can I see those who wish to speak in this debate, please? We'll just note, keep your hands up, and then Mr. Weavers will note them down. Keep your hands up. Yeah, have you got them? Councillor Nissen, Councillor Smith. Is that all? Councillor Harris? Okay, I'll give you another opportunity later if anybody thinks, as part of the debate. Councillor Sykes, we've got you, thank you. The first speaker I have is Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Mayor, and I really support the words that have been spoken so far. I think Councillor King really introduced this motion well, and I really do commend the work with Councillor Laws and Councillor Fox. This is the kind of work we should do together, which is an idea comes forward. We have competing ideas, but let's put it together to make some solution come forward where we can get ourselves round the table and remove some of the politics from it. And I think that has been done well. So I'm going to try my best not to go into the ins and outs of the debate, because I am supporting the motion to allow a group to go forward to do that, to have in mind the Boundary Commission coming forward as well, and to work hand in hand with them hopefully in the future. I do have a book in my bag that says UK Government and Politics, because I do teach that, and it was my degree. So I could go on about the swings and roundabouts and drawbacks and the positives of a change. I'm one of those that Councillor Laws talks about who has a fairly strong view about the democratic right of our residents to go and vote and to do it regularly. So I would want to see that regularity kept up. I do think that aids a healthy democracy. I did have a brief chat with the Deputy Mayor on the way in, and I think we covered a couple of the points, and again, I don't think we need to go through them here, but we all have genuine non-political reasons to debate this, so I think it's really important we take this forward, and as I say, I won't go into the minutiae of the argument now. The Punch and Judy politics, Councillor Law, as you mentioned, I think we should be able to do that no matter what. I do think we should improve that. I think we sometimes need to give each other more respect. I've always tried to lead by example on that, and I think this is a perfect case where we have worked together fine and we have responded to each other, and I hope that continues in the rest of the debate. Councillor Fox made a point about the finances. I think there is a cost to democracy, and it's really important that we actually pay that cost, and we do fund the elections and don't look to necessarily make savings in this way. However, I think we are in such a circumstance now with local government funding absolutely hitting a wall where even a very well-run council like this is looking at serious changes, transformation, and prospective savings that are beyond what we've looked at before. So I've said it before, I welcome those on governance and audit, I welcome cross-chamber discussions, and this is an example that I cannot shut down. I cannot say because of principle we should stop looking at this. We should, because we have to look at everything. And I hope everyone gets the seriousness of how we have to look at everything that we do as a council now because of the seriousness of the finances. So that will be my last point. I thank the workers of this motion to bring it here this evening, and I support it. Thank you.
Councillor Corey. Councillor Lewis Barber is our next speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the speakers so far for introducing this motion. It's an interesting one because ultimately it's a topic where none of the parties would particularly benefit from any type of electoral system here. For example, the Conservative Party, as Councillor Law says, is not in the ripest position right now electorally, as we see in the national polls, and therefore if we support four-year elections, it probably would hinder us because we wouldn't have a chance to then regain the council the year after. Whereas when you're in the ascendancy in the polls, four-year elections seems a tantalising prospect. So each party at different times over the last few years, of course, have been swings and roundabouts where our popularity is, and any one type of electoral system that we take up would benefit one or other of us at any given time. So what's quite nice is that we're all coming from this at a position where actually there's no political advantage, party political advantage choosing one system or another because the winds blow differently at various points. I will stake my claim at the moment, despite the fact my party could be smashed into an oblivion at any point in an election, is that the four-year election cycle would be very healthy, I feel, for our democracy. And I take the point about the regularity of voting. However, by extension, if a year, why not 6 months? Why not 3 months? Why not 1 month? At some point, you do have to decide where you feel the balance against long-term decision-making and giving sort of a sustainability in governance compared to that. How often do you vote? For instance, I don't think any of the people on this side of the room would have particularly liked the going general elections every year. In fact, I feel that a lot of the national left-leaning parties complained about having regular general elections. So I don't think we'd want to see that principle increase to the general election regularity either. I don't see anyone clamouring for annual general elections, quite the opposite, as we know from that lovely young lady from Bristol, that nobody particularly wants to keep voting. So I do think there's a risk of fatigue. We can see that in the low turnout. Colchester residents go to vote every single year at least once over a four-year cycle. So I do feel there is a bit of stress on the voting and there's a bit of fatigue can set in. So I think that can help reset, and we want to see sustainable governance. Across the calendar year, half the time, council's not really, as a council body, functioning in a normal sense of the word. We have Christmas, we have summer, there's that odd period between annual meeting and the elections, and then we have Purdah every year. So quite often there's some form of disruption to decision making that I do feel hinders us, and that's what I feel has been picked up by the peer review. So I think this is a really good opportunity for us to do something different, to see how we can progress our voting system. And like I said, I can only really take the notion sensibly of annual elections if someone calls for it at general elections too, and I don't think anyone in all seriousness is doing that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. We tend to call it the pre-election period these days, but that's for your... Yeah, but if you look up what that word that you used actually means, you understand why we don't use it anymore. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't think this is the time to debate the merits or demerits of any particular system. But in response to what Councillor Barber has said, as I recall, and I'm going to be told off by Councillor Coy if I've got it wrong, actually annual elections was a demand of the Chartists, I believe, back from the 1848s. But I appreciate that was well before your time, Councillor Barber. And of course, all up elections do actually have a political favourism. They favour established parties. And that is shown by the evidence there. The other point I would make is that when you're looking at experience and good governance, all-up elections happened in Uttlesford 4 years ago, and we know the consequences there and the problems they've got into with planning when inexperienced councillors were put in charge. One might see there have been some national issues recently that have caused the same sort of issues. But what I'm going to do is ask for some clarification on a couple of points on the motion. First of all, you refer in the motion to it being cross-party. Can I ask you to confirm you actually mean all party rather than cross-party? And the second point, which I think this group should also look at, which ties in with the Boundary Commission's review, is looking at the number of councillors, because there is a link between the electoral system and the number of councillors. We can only have a number of councillors divisible by 3 if we maintain annual elections. And there is clearly a linkage there. If we were to do, heaven forbid, like we did last time, and reduce the number of councillors by another 9, the size of some of the wards would be absolutely horrendous. And a case could maybe be made at that point that actually going for all-up elections so you could subdivide the wards between the massive wards that they would then be, would be a case that would be valid. So I think both points should be looked at the same time because they are interrelated. But that said, those are my thoughts on this one. And in case anyone has any doubts, I very much favour the existing system that means the electorate of my ward get their say 3 years out of every 4 on the performance of this council.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't propose to go into the arguments this evening about whether we should have annual elections, quadrennial elections, or some other system. I just want to focus on a couple of things. One, the Local Government Association doesn't direct us. The Local Government Association is an amalgam of all local governments around the country, and it politically swings one way or the other depending on what the makeup of the totality of councillors of political parties are. So I think we should be very cautious about taking advice and direction from the LGA. The second thing that I wanted to say was, and Councillor Smith's already picked it up, was that I wanted to pick up the wording around cross-party working group and ensure that that is all-party working group, because at the moment there are more than 2 parties, more than 3 parties in this chamber, and at any time whilst we're undertaking this, there may be another party involved. So I think it's essential that we have all-party involvement. Whilst I will be supporting the motion this evening, I don't necessarily support the intention behind the motion this evening, and I would just say to everyone in the room, what price democracy?
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Sunnox, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was elected in May this year, but I've been watching the council for a few years, and I've watched a rotating cast of people going through. I've seen 2 leaders beheaded at elections, and for me, the absolute priority, we are elected, we're paid for by the public to run the council, and I just don't think that the high turnover we see is giving the leadership, with the experienced leadership, the public has a right to expect. So there was I realise it's more complicated than I initially thought, and I thought 4 years, 4 yearly elections would equate to stable leadership, and I accept that it is more complicated than that, and that's why I'm glad we're having a proper discussion about it. But when we have the discussion, the priority should be to try and have a system that gives us a little bit more stability. And for those who say that the electorate have the right to judge us 3 years out of every 4, I would say that you can't judge a carrot by pulling it out and looking to see whether it's growing every month. You need to give it time to grow. And you can't judge a council, you can't judge the performance of a council every year if you keep on trying to do that. You need to give it, if you want a long-term approach, you've got to give people enough time to actually do the job. So I hope that the cross-party group, I very much support the motion, hope the cross-party group looks at the stability issues and tries to find a system that'll give us a bit more experience and therefore more influence from councillors over the way the councils run.
Councillor Sonik, so thank you for the vegetable analogy. I don't think we have enough vegetable analogies in this chamber. Councillor Nissen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the work of all of the councillors who've been involved in this, but with particular thanks to councillors Laws, Fox and King. I think that this motion and its evolution is a really great example of that lauded, recognised, mature cross-party collaboration. I love the analogies this evening about Punch and Judy and immature carrots, but I'm going to try and keep mine a bit more swifter than that. I can say that we support this motion. Having had sight of the LGA recommendations plus the financial situation, it is an appropriate and timely motion, and it's a sensible consideration of next steps via this approach. Now, I'm avoiding this evening, Mr. Mayor, delving into the pros and cons of the outcome. I think this is a chance for conversation, collaboration, and really getting to grips with consultation, 3 C's. I believe that there is a healthy balance of views within this chamber on this matter, and I think that that may provide adequate, can't read my own writing, opportunity for consultation with those who we are here to serve. As other colleagues have mentioned this evening, we're here for our residents. So if we can enable them to have the opportunity to contribute as well, that's good for democracy too. And I would hope that the outcome of this particular piece of work would lead to a definitive representative position that we can all heed moving forward, and thank you very much.
Thank you for that contribution, Councillor Nissen. Councillor Dave Harris, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, all. Yeah, I've got a few words to say about it. I was originally very reticent to support this, but I shall be voting for it, Mr. Mayor. I shall be voting for it. In saying that, I wanted to make it clear that I was a tendering district councillor in 1982 and a Harwich town councillor in 1982 with some excellent councillors in there on a 4-yearly system. So I've experienced both sides of the fence, the yearly here and the 4-yearly there. Now, I was a much younger man then, of course, much younger. I had hardly any wrinkles. That would surprise you, wouldn't it? But I remember being taught, as Councillor Corey said, at school, and sadly they don't teach in the way they used to, citizenship and democracy. And I remember those books extremely well that I was pored over, and the teacher that infused me. We've all had teachers that really make you go the extra mile to go to the 1960s Tory party husting and a Labour husting just to feed back to the class. As an 11 and 12 and 13-year-old, that was something quite special, I thought, that was interesting to go with my parents. But on the debate itself, as far as I'm concerned, the great thing about this motion that Councillor King has said is that we're going to come back to the full council in February with some findings. All parties are involved, great stuff, big tick in the box there. The assumed savings, I think, needs to be in that debate. Assumed, because, there's been lots of figures bandied around, but the latest one I heard was £100,000 likely saving. I took the deliberate tactic, Mr. Mayor, to talk to my grandson, who's 16. I support votes at 16 and have done for many years. And how am I going to encourage my grandson, Cody, to vote regularly and get in the habit of voting for when I'm past and dust if he only votes every 4 years? So for me, I like the idea of a yearly election. I relish the chance of having people come up and stand against us as a team in Beerchurch or anywhere else to come and stand against us for those seats. That's good for democracy and puts the figures out to the local public. So let's see what happens. As far as I'm concerned, 73 pence, that's how much if you divide £100,000 into the population now, that's what my vote is worth, 73 pence. Councillor Pearson, I answered your question. What price democracy? 73 pence a year. Is that worth a vote? Yes, Mr Mayor. That's how I feel. But I will be supporting Mr Mayor and look forward to the debate at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. I'm just trying to come to terms with the fact that 1982 is 40 years ago. Some councillors in the room will think, that sounds a long time ago. In 1982, 40 years ago, would have been 1942, and we'd have been thinking that was a long time, but doesn't time fly? Any other speakers in this debate, please? No, then Councillor King, I'll ask you to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to my fellow supporters of the motion, Councillor Laws and Fox, and for all those who've spoken and spoken so well. Points of clarification, first of all, would be worth doing. Yes, all party was what we were not going to exclude anybody. That would be completely inappropriate, was not the intent, but I welcome the opportunity on behalf of my colleagues to clarify that. And of course, to confirm that divisible by 3 and all that follows from the Boundary Commission, which was the point I made at the beginning, is clearly has the potential to make arcane the conversations tonight. But we still need to have them for the reasons that many of you have expressed, that need to recognise the challenge and how we might best address it together, and that need to consider what our position will be when we engage with the Boundary Commission when that time does come. In terms of the cost, which was a further point of clarification or a decent question left hanging, that of course will be part of the evidence that will go to that working group, and of course that will be in the public domain with the qualifications I suspect that will go with it. There's a range of opinion here, and I think the way it's been expressed is perhaps the most important thing. It's been well said that there is a case for a change. It's been well said that the cost of democracy exceeds the fatigue that some see or feel in truth inside this chamber or beyond. I think we could acknowledge, it being said, well, we can acknowledge some rich metaphors, and if were there a award, Councillor Summings would get it tonight for judging a carrot, and as my colleague has said to me, other vegetables are available. And the most unfortunate simile or example of beheaded leadership, which of course can come to any of us. So, and quite soon, which is an example, of course, why we do need to have stable leadership. So Councillor Adam Fox and I are already having that conversation. You'll be all pleased to hear with the senior team as we look ahead to next week. I'll stop there, Mr Mayor. There's clearly support for the motion, and I commend it accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor King. We'll move to the vote then. Can I see all those in favour of the motion, please show?
That looks unanimous, Mr Mayor. It's not.
Okay, keep your hands up, please.
Okay.
All those in favour?
All those in favour? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those against?
1.
Thank you very much.
Carried,
that is carried. Thank you very much indeed. We'll move on to item 9, questions to Cabinet members and chairs pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10. We have 2 pre-notified questions. I'll invite Councillor Rees-Smithson to ask his to Councillor Goss. You will have to read it out, Rees, for the benefit of the recording. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Could the portfolio holder for neighbourhood services and waste please advise the council on the following questions? 1. What contingency plans have been put in place to ensure waste collections are maintained should waste operatives be laid low by COVID and/or seasonal colds and flu? 2. What contingency plans have been put in place to ensure the continuation of waste collections should waste operatives take industrial action resulting in withdrawal of their labour? And 3. What is the estimated cost of these plans should they need to be invoked? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smithson. Councillor Goss to respond.
Thank you for the questions. Thanks for pre-notifying me. I'm just logging in to get you the answers because obviously I've done all my research. So I shall be with you in 30 seconds thanks to Microsoft logging me out, which is really helpful. Indeed, but I like the facts, you know, and I don't want to get all my facts wrong, as you know, Councillor Barber.
In your own time, Councillor Goss.
So, here we go. In answer to your question, so what contingency plans have been put in place? Basically, well, indeed, we've been working together. So, the service will always do what it needs to do to deliver
Colleagues,
full
please,
service.
we want to hear Councillor Goss's answer.
And staff communications include reminders on the need to maintain personal hygiene and clean work areas to maintain the health to themselves, co-workers, family, and this includes face masks and gloves as appropriate. A detailed contingency plan remains in place. Detailed reviews will always be taken on the service at least daily and moving to hourly should the need arise considering staffing and weather. Decisions on pausing of services due to low staffing numbers or the impact of weather will always be the final step, and will consider the waste hierarchy. Any pause will be the shortest time as possible, and of course we'll follow the waste hierarchy where residual and food waste come first, paper and plastic second, glass and cans third, and garden waste fourth. And of course during COVID we did suspend garden waste for a period. Pre-prepared public communications will be in place through website, social media and customer care centre, and these will be issued as soon as possible. Councillors will be updated on any decisions. Question 2, around the contingency plans being in place should waste operatives take industrial action. Well, priority will always be to get the black bag and food waste collected. Detailed reviews will always be taken on the service considering staffing levels, and decisions on pausing of services due to low staffing numbers will consider the waste hierarchy as I've mentioned under question 1 and will be for the shortest period. Again, the communications will go via web, social media and customer care centre, and councillors will be updated. The council is able to use agency staff if needed. The estimated cost, well, the service will be delivered within the existing forecasted budget, so there will be no overspend if that happens. So I'm happy to circulate that answer because it was long, hence why I had to make sure it's properly researched, but thank you for the question, but you can rest assured it is fully covered.
Thank you, Councillor Goss, and I think it would be helpful if you could circulate that to all councillors, please. Councillor Smithson, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mayor, if I may. Councillor Goss, you've said that it will be covered within the existing budget. That would indicate that the budget currently has surplus if we are looking at potentially using agency staff, and that will be covered. Is there surplus in the waste budget?
Councillor Goss.
As I said, it will be covered in the existing waste budget, but as with all of the budgets within the council, there is budget pressure and it is currently being managed appropriately.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next pre-notified question, which is from Councillor Sunnox to Councillor King. You'll have to read it out, please, William.
Does the administration appreciate the importance of the scoping consultation for the East Anglian Green Environment Statement, which has to be submitted by 5th of December? Sounds really boring, but this is about the proposed line of giant pylons from Norwich to Tilbury, which will cut across the East Anglian countryside. As a statutory consultee, will the council provide a dry technical analysis, or will it insist that the reasonable alternative of a full offshore grid is properly explained?
Thank you, Councillor Sunnox. Councillor King.
Thank you, Councillor Sunnox. I really welcome this being raised. My good colleague, Councillor Andrea Luxford-Vaughan, would have enjoyed talking to this, I know. I'll do my best in her absence, as it is an issue, as it happens, in which I have taken a public position like she has, and you'll be aware of that, I trust, because it was, as it should be, made well known and was clear that we're absolutely opposed to the proposition, actually the whole style, the lack of true prejudgment and assessment beforehand. So that's where we start, and at the end of the answer you will find, well, that's where we are. But to your question, do we appreciate the importance of the scoping consultation? To be clear, this is about scoping how the consultation should be conducted when it is. But yes, absolutely, we do understand the importance. And from what I can see, it's plain that our officers do. And I know that there have been some exchanges with you, and I'm sure that that can continue. I think there is a point for us that on issues of this importance, that we make sure that we brief all members, at least sending around what our position is, how we've responded, what the next steps might be. So we'll take away where we can some learning points in terms of continuing to provide communications on matters of such importance. But absolutely, yes, technical though it is, which is really your second point, yes, we get the importance. Now, providing a dry technical response is inevitable to a degree, because as I know you will know, that's the nature of the complex question put out there to planning officers across this part of the country, and how they respond has to be, as you would and I would expect, professionally, so that what they say is evidenced, understandable, and therefore more likely to have an impact. Now, I'll talk to it now. There is obviously, however, a twin track at different points of the long path that lies ahead, and where politically we have to make sure that the views of this local authority and others, and we're working in concert, we have done before, and I'm sure we will in the steps that are ahead across the 3 counties of East Anglia, that we make sure that what we think, what we see, what we want, and what we think is appropriate, which I hope gets to the point about making sure that a full offshore grid is properly explored. I've seen some of the internal exchanges around this. I just say that they, to me, show the right kind of drive and determination we'd expect from an award-winning planning department. And it's collective work as well with their peers and counterparts. I've seen language like hammer home, and making sure the magnitude of the project and its impacts is understood and conveyed. So it's plain to me that officers understand the importance of this, understand it's more than dry and technical. They understand the emotional impact of what could happen, but they have to respond to this piece of work, these inquiries, in the way that their professional challenge is set to them. They have to apply in terms of the scope that's given. Because I hope I've given you some sense that the twin track that lies ahead, the consultation itself is next spring. Through that process and beyond, we are doing our very best to make sure that the collective view, which is opposition to the destruction of grids of this size, but support for the fact that we do need energy, and we want to have that available to us all, do we not? Green as is possible, to the best standard, to the best style, but offshore if it's at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Lismore, you asked me to request the permission of the Mayor before you leave the chamber, but you may go. Thank you. Councillor Sunnox, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. Yes. Thank you very much for that answer, Councillor King. And we are all working on the same side, and it is a huge pleasure to be doing so, and with the MPs and with other councils. So that's a huge pleasure. But there is a tendency amongst officers to do quite a nervous technical response that follows the tram lines of the system. And this needs quite a lot of initiative to push the tram lines, because otherwise they will ask a narrow question which will give the wrong answer. The narrow question is, how do you get electricity from Norwich to Tilbury? And that gives an onshore answer. The problem that they're trying to solve is how to get electricity from the wind farms to Tilbury. And looking at that gives another answer. And it's actually quite technically difficult to bust out of the tram lines. So will the administration try and give officers confidence to try and bust out of those tram lines and give a very, very strong response?
Thank you. Councillor King.
I love the analogy. William, you're doing really well on that tonight. As two of my colleagues just said to me, well, we know that Andrea doesn't like tram lines anyway, so, and I mean that in the best sense, that she is up for challenge, and that's the right thing, you know, in its appropriate measure. That's the right thing. I'll pay personal attention to this, but I will say this again. You know, our officers have to be given the due space to do the professional thing. We have to not go without a debate about this, not without making a point. We also have to allow them to do their professional duty in a way that they would say is most likely to make and have the effect we want. But we're absolutely up for it. Yeah, we're up for pushing the system, and in the way you describe it, working together to make the best case we can, or get the best case secured for an alternative to what's staring us at the moment, which is destructive proposal, which we all should continue to reject. So thank you. We'll work with you with it.
Thank you, Councillor King. We now move to oral questions. Can I please see who wants to ask an oral question tonight? Please put your hands up. Keep your hands up if you've got them all. Okay, anybody else? No? Okay, we might get through this then before we have to have a break. So first one is Councillor Barber, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question's for the portfolio holder for resources. I was recently at a parish council meeting and they asked me whether I knew of the borough council's intentions for funding for parish councils over the next year and looking forward into the next financial year, and whether there were any plans to devolve any services or other responsibilities down to parish councils. And I said, I don't know actually, and I'll ask at the next full council. So here I am asking Councillor Corey. Thank you.
Sure, Councillor Corey would have appreciated pre-notification of that, but I will ask him to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, this can be an ongoing discussion, to be honest, Councillor Barber, so I can keep you updated. I too have a parished area where my town council would be interested to hear the response. Because of budgets, we have to look at working in partnership as much as possible. We are not as large, perhaps, as the county, which was looking at devolving certain services. So in some places, you know, there are partnerships over parking, toilets, over playing fields, etc.
Councillor Corey, Councillor Scott Patel is asking, can you speak into the microphone as much as possible, please?
Sure, thank you.
Could I just add, could Councillor King move the microphone a little bit closer?
Thank you very much. That's helpful. Thank you. Carry on, Mark.
Thank you. So essentially, the answer is we have no direct plans, but our door is open. We are always happy to speak with parish councils and community councils. We are looking at how we can share services as much as possible. That will mainly be at other district level. It can be worked with the county as well, but also down with parish councils. So I would say, Councillor Barber, the door is open. We are looking at the grants, of course, that are given out to parish councils that perhaps not many people know we do. Also other funds devolve down, but also we will speak with them about services. There are partnerships where waste receptacles are given out by some councils. I know Wivenhoe does. So the honest answer is the door is open. We will be happy to talk to all parish councils about projects, joint services, and latterly, or soon, we'll have the Rural Prosperity Fund as well coming in, where we can look at shared projects and shared working and actually use some of that to lever in perhaps better or different services in those local areas. So thank you for the genuine question. That's a genuine answer, and I'd be happy to continue that line of questioning with the councils that come forward and that are interested in working together.
Thank you, Mark. Lewis, you got a supplementary? Thank you very much. Our next questioner is Councillor Harris, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll take your advice now. I've got a question for Councillor Julie Young as Safer Colchester. Would I have to ask that as somebody else? Or?
Yeah, Councillor King would deal with that.
Okay. Difficulty I've got is I've also got a question for Councillor King as a leader.
Because your original question is to Councillor Julie Young, you cannot, the leader will deputise for her, so that's acceptable, yeah.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Mayor. My first question is to Councillor Julie Young via the leader. If I was asking the portfolio holder for the Safer Colchester the following, having had discussions with others recently over the neighbourhood action panels, and those in the room will remember the old NAPs as they were, a very good vehicle for doing things in volunteers, etc. On the merits and initial thoughts of the Cabinet for restarting them where they're required. The many successes were a good community building tool, as I said. With Zooms or Teams, it seems a good way to bring police, neighbourhood watch, council officers, residents associations, councillors and even housing association officers together, assuming it was a no-cost leader to the council in these trying times. Would it be possible to look at where it would be possible to reinstate, where there is an appetite locally for such to do so?
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor King.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. I shall happy to answer for Julie best I can. I'm sure that she'll follow up if that's necessary. I think from my perspective and listening to voices left and right as you're speaking, what you're putting forward is very much in the spirit of how we're going to continue to look at the challenges of the day and how we should respond. And the answer is always going to be with the help of others. And not just because that can sometimes be more cost efficient, and let's be frank, that should matter to all of us, it particularly matters now, but because the quality and breadth of view and where we might then take the work we do with others, that alone warrants it. So on this particular example of ways of working with others, I think that absolutely feels right. We do have, of course, amongst the many great partnerships and relationships acknowledged recently by the LGA, and we do have one Colchester, and that's been suggested to me, and I think that would be my view, that we could take that there and test it out. We could test it out elsewhere. So thank you for the suggestion. It's in the spirit of the times of conversations that have to be had and ways of addressing the issues of the day. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Harris? No, Mr. Can you move on to your next question, please, then?
Okay, to the leader himself, Pro Tem, I did notify Councillor King of this question. As you know, Mr. Mayor, I unapologetically lectured last council about being nice to each other, respectful to each other, both as councillors as residents. I was therefore pleased to engage this week with training on the LGA Code of Practice and the Nolan Principles. Could I ask, therefore, if the leader has an idea on the take-up of the training, and would he support me in calling for those not yet trained to do so, to get the training by Andrew Weavers on the code as soon as possible? Thank you.
Councillor Harris, Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Harris. Dave, you're a man who lives these words. You are a man of courtesy and respect to others. Although Pro Tem didn't feel it, I have to say. But I am practicing a variety of different speeches, should that be needed. So thank you for the reminder of what may be coming. We'll see, he says. You did give me prior notice, thank you, and I've asked the question, and the answer, when Richard last looked, was 29 councillors. So that's not much more than half of us so far have attended one of the 3 sessions held. The presentation and recording has been recirculated, and I would join the Democratic Services officers and I ask my fellow leaders in their groups to just encourage members to take the limited time it's needed to just refresh their understanding. It's very easy for us to think we know this stuff, but there are some technicalities to it, although I think starting and ending with courtesy and respect will probably get most of us most of the way. So I thank you for the prompt. I join your call and support it, and I hope that might be picked up away from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Do you have a supplementary for that one, Councillor Harris?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Did you have another question?
I do, yes, for the portfolio hold for culture and heritage, and this is a very nice question. I hope Councillor Cox would care to comment on the events over the past year, not only how great our city has coped in the last few months with all that's happened, but also with the mayoralty, and both of how the mayor, existing mayor, and the council itself has dealt with the last year. I'm a fan of the mayoralty, as everybody knows, and I've seen for decades how we as Colchesterians celebrate our diversity and individuality, but I've also seen that each mayor does it his or her own way, and it's done Colchester good. But I have to say, Councillor Young has had to contend with more than most. I think he would agree with that, with the transition out of COVID, with the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, with the passing of our long-serving Queen, the subsequent services for that, and then the ascension of the King. And then on top of that was the recent city status, and talk about a full agenda. No one could have seen most of those, and I will welcome Councillor Cox's comments on such a full year.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Cox.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Harris. And I think all mayoral years are eventful, but this one has been, I'm sure you'll agree, more eventful than many. And as Councillor Harris has alluded to, the current mayor and mayoress have represented our community at many events during the year, promoting their very deserving charities, and through that the work of diversity. But they've also had, and the mayor in particular, to preside over ceremonies which probably weren't expected, as Councillor Harris has mentioned. So, and in particular, I just wanted to note really the way that the mayor led us through the ceremony last week, because that was a historic occasion. And I think the mayor conducted that with aplomb and in a style befitting of that occasion. But I'd also like to thank the team that support the mayor, the officers, and indeed the officers who made that rather fantastic ceremony happen last week. So I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say thank you to the officers for last week and the mayor for presiding over the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, it might all go to my head, this. Thank you very much, but I couldn't know. Egoless, that's me. Thank you to the officers. They seriously did a great job in everything that's happened over the first 6 months of my mayoralty. And thanks to you for supporting everything that we're doing, and couldn't do it without you. You've all been very respectful and supportive, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer. Did you have a supplementary?
Not at all, Mr. Mayor.
Good. I might get embarrassed, Dave. Councillor Smith for the next question, please.
Thank you. My question is to the portfolio holder, Councillor Goss. Does he think it is right that not-for-profit organisations that are carrying out functions that are in line with the council's policies are charged the same rate for the use of waste services as a commercial organisation? If I can say a little bit in the background of this, whilst I'm aware Councillor Goss is fully aware of it, not all councillors will be aware of the circumstances. In my ward, a residents' association has regularly arranged for a leaf collection for the past 20-odd years, with Colchester Council providing a freighter to come up and take the leaves away. Originally they paid for this, and then the council found that they were getting so much in recycling credits they were making a profit. This year, regrettably, the council said they would no longer do this. They would charge them at a commercial rate, over £400, and initially they said they weren't going to be entitled to any recycling credits. It wasn't until this afternoon that we finally got confirmation that actually the county council hasn't changed its policy on recycling credits. They will still be available, and those recycling credits will be refunded. So hopefully, if we can just raise 14 tonnes of waste, which is a tonne or two more than we normally do, we'll be able to pay for the full cost. But the question is to the portfolio holder, is it right that residents' associations should be treated this way?
Councillor Goss.
Thanks for raising it. Thanks for the many emails on the subject, particularly when I was on a sun lounger in Thailand, but I was still keeping abreast of the situation, and I only got back last night. So in answer to your question, we obviously have to be very prudent with council finances, and we also cannot make a profit from any organisation as well by over recovery of costs, particularly with resident associations, etc. So you do have my commitment that I will continue to look at these rates that are obviously published and see what we can do to ensure that they are appropriately channelled to be cost effective for both the resident association and the council, so that there is no profit in any rate that we charge. And of course, if resident associations want to do this good work, it's also affordable, because in effect, that is what they're doing. They are paying for the service, and therefore we need to make sure that the resident association can afford it, because if they don't, that good work that they do for the community will disappear. And of course, the recycling credits will hopefully cover most of that cost.
Thank you, Councillor Gus. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Smith?
Very briefly, would you like to congratulate the Residents Association for their efforts in the past at recycling so much waste for Colchester?
Councillor Goss?
Yes, it's fair to say the Welshwood Park Residents Association does set the bar that many other resident associations do try and follow in the work that they do, but of course they do have quite a unique amount of trees that are hundreds of years old, even older than Councillor Smith. So absolutely, I do congratulate them and thank them for the work they do.
Thank you very much. Next question is from Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mayor. My question's to the Deputy Leader of the Council. In light of the damage the last Prime Minister did to the national economy, could Councillor Fox update the Council on any initiatives he is taking to sustain and develop the economy of Colchester City? Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Pearson for his question. Obviously, the local economy has been impacted by a number of different things, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, but also that mini budget that pushed interest rates up and has consequences for local businesses, for local residents, and for the council itself too. But I feel that we also need to remain positive about the local economy, and we need to be champions for it as well. So of course, we do have the town deal funding coming our way. That's around £20 million initially, but should unlock additional investment too. And I'm hopeful that in January of next year, we'll start to see progress on some of those projects, and that will drive economic activity in the city centre, economic activity around the skills agenda, for example, in IT and digital skills. And we also have the rollout of ultra-fast broadband in the borough, the future green energy system at Northern Gateway, and also the new business centre in Queen Street as well to come forward. Through groups like the North Essex Economic Board as well, we have been supporting local businesses throughout the pandemic and since then. And of course, we continue to work with groups like Colchester, the Business Improvement District, Federation of Small Businesses as well. And I just wanted to also perhaps give an example of where the council's initiatives have brought in external investment. So the Women's Tour cycle race came to Colchester. It showcased Colchester and the wider region and brought in around £1 million to the local economy, particularly to visitor attractions and to the hospitality industry. And an audience of over 400,000 people watched that on ITV and through Eurosport as well. So initiatives like that really help to put Colchester on the map and encourage people to come and visit. And that really is the whole of Colchester. It's not just the city centre. It's those cyclists rode out through the rural parts of our city. And I think that we need to continue to make the case for the economy, both in the city centre but beyond its limits. And finally, This weekend is Small Business Saturday. It's the 10th anniversary of that initiative. 93% of businesses in Colchester are small and micro enterprises. And I'd encourage every single one of us to support our small businesses this weekend. Colchester residents always want to know about what independent businesses there are that they can support across our area. And I think it's incumbent on us, to demonstrate that we're supporting them in the money that we're spending in local shops and with local traders as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer. Councillor Fox, do you have a supplementary, Councillor Pearson?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much indeed. Our final question tonight is from Councillor Jocelyn Law.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for the portfolio holder for Culture and Heritage, Councillor Cox. A week ago, we were at the wonderful ceremony to mark our new city status. And I know, obviously, that sadly activities had to be paused with the passing of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth. But I'd just like to ask Councillor Cox about planning for activities for the year ahead to mark our city status, and in particular, engaging with our residents across the whole city and across the borough to make everybody feel included in those activities going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Cox.
Sure, thank you for the question, Councillor Law. And I was very pleased to attend policy panel last night at the invitation of the chairs to give an update to policy panel on this too. So I'll give a brief reprise here, if I may. There are three prongs, or there were three prongs to our city status planning. We've done one of them now, the ceremony on the 23rd of November, which went very, very smoothly. And then two other areas, a year of celebration and the legacy planning. So let me talk a little bit about the year of celebration. I'm sure many people would like to know what's happening on that front. There is about to be a launch of let me put it this way, a tourist-facing suite of activities that will be publicised very soon. And some of you were involved in conversations about the theme of a city through time, and I'm very pleased to say that the events in that selection do play to our heritage strengths across time. I'm not going to preempt them here because otherwise there won't be a launch. So the idea is that we'll launch those very, very soon. And the idea there, of course, is to attract more visitors to the town as well as residents. Now, of course, there's a second part to the year of celebration, which is the more community-focused events. And here things are, a phrase I used yesterday in policy panel, bubbling up all the time. I'm getting suggestions all the time of new events to include into that focus. So let me give you a flavour of some of those. So there's the unveiling of a plaque commemorating the Beerchurch Dyke, the Iron Age Dyke in Beerchurch, is happening in January and going to involve local schools. There's work going on with Wake's Common Local History Society as well, and work with St Leonard's and the Hythe around the Siege of Colchester commemoration. There's the Mercury Theatre involved in setting up a schools democracy project. So every week something new is coming up, and if you have further thoughts you'd like to bring in from your own wards, please do let me know about that. So that's in terms of the year of celebration. It's shaping up really nicely. In terms of the legacy planning, I won't say too much about this, but there's a group, I think, led at the officer level by Lindsay Barker, looking at legacy planning with this very strong nudge of the peer review team, who encouraged us to make the most of this opportunity. And our thinking, I think it's fair to say, changed at that point around the possibility. So there's some, I think, very interesting work going on around legacy planning, of which more anon. And I don't doubt that it's a really challenging year to be doing this. It couldn't be a more challenging year, when on the one hand we're having to make very serious financial decisions, and on the other hand we've got a city status to celebrate, and somehow we're going to do both, and I'm confident that we can do both. So in terms of the public engagement, we had, some of you will know, there's been a survey which has concluded recently. It achieved 1,100 responses, which is pretty good for a survey of that nature. It covered, we had responses from across the borough, and the policy panel debated those in much detail last night. If you want more details on that, there's a presentation which summarised the kind of themes that residents were interested in. I took a very strong steer as portfolio holder for Culture and Heritage around a very clear interest in improving the historic centre. The town, the High Street in particular, a very clear interest in sharpening our sense of place, refining a sense of place, and really making the most of the cultural assets that we have. So that was very clear steer there. There are other things as well in that survey, but I'll end it there. It's a really nice opportunity to consult with residents and hear their views. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Law? No? Okay, thank you. That ends the questions then. Item 10, schedule of portfolio holder decisions. Can I invite you to note the schedule of portfolio holder decisions covering the period 6th of October 2022 to the 18th of November. Is that noted? Noted. Thank you. Urgent items, there are none. So all it leaves me to do is, we may be back before the Christmas, who knows, to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a happy and hopeful New Year. Thank you very much.
All those that can, please stand. Get out of here.